Right, without further ado, I would like to introduce someone that needs no introduction. She is the Congresswoman from the Illinois 2nd Congressional District. I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Robin Kelly. So, Congresswoman Robin Kelly represents the Illinois 2nd Congressional District, which stretches from the south side of Chicago well into the south suburbs and straddles the border along Indiana all the way down to below Danville. Congresswoman Robin Kelly has championed numerous initiatives to reduce health disparities, create job growth, and end gun violence since taking office in 2013. She is committed to improving health, wellness, and for vulnerable communities, as well as across the country. And she has taken on the gun lobby and won. And if you fought the gun lobby, you know how hard that is. Congresswoman Kelly serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, and she's also on the Democratic Policy Group, and she's the co-chair for the Maternity Care Caucus. So I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Congresswoman, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and before Congress? I know that you served in the State House before Congress. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, hello, everybody. Nice to see all of you, and thanks for inviting me. I am Congresswoman Kelly, and I have a very big district, the biggest Democratic district in the state of Illinois. I'm a person that never, ever thought that I would run for office. I was minding my business one day, and 5 men came to me and asked me to run, which is really interesting that it was 5 men. Sorry, man. But honestly, I told them, no, I can't do it. I said, I'm too sensitive. If they talk about me in the paper, I'll cry. This is all true, And also, they saw in me things I didn't see in myself. And I talked to my family and friends and decided that I would truly take a leap of faith. Really, my background is social service. I always knew I wanted to be in a role that helped people, that lift boats. So my undergrad is in psych, my master's is in counseling from Bradley University, and I have a PhD in political science, but I often say the psych and counseling helped me more on the job I have now, especially than anything I could learn as far as political science. But I took the leap of faith and I ran, and I served for 4 years, and I gave up my seat because another person begged me to work with him, and that was Alexi Janulius. So I was his chief for 4 years in the treasurer's office, and then we all ran, and 2010 was not a good year for Democrats. We all lost, and then I was Tony Prewinkle's chief administrative office, and then I got the opportunity to run for Congress when Jesse Jackson Jr. actually won, but decided he wasn't going to run. So with my love of wanting to help people, truly being a public servant, that really what informs what I do. And because my district is very, very diverse, but I just look at it no matter where you live, people want a roof over their head, most people want a job, most people want, or all people I would think, want good health care, quality education, and they want to feel safe. So that's how I operate no matter who I represent. And I feel like whether you voted for me or not, I am truly trying to lift all boats because we all do better when we all do better. I have 4,500 farms in my district, and I know my district stopped in Kankakee, and then in the redistricting, it went south of Danville, west of Pontiac. And I know when they saw me coming, there was a nasty op-ed that I would ignore people, below Cook or Will, and my staff was so upset, but I said, let's show them, we're not gonna tell them. So I quickly opened the office in Danville. I hired who I think is a superstar in Danville to run my office. There's a person and a half down there, and we went to work. And my farmers and my mayors have all said, we didn't think we were gonna like you, but we do. So I in my last election, I got more votes down there too, but I've really tried to tell people, I don't care if you live next to me or you live the furthest away from me, you're in my district and I'm here to serve you. A big swath of my portfolio is healthcare, because I don't care how much money you have, if you don't have your health, you don't have a lot. So I've done a lot of work around access, inequality, maternal mortality and morbidity. I brought that to Congress just listening to a constituent. That's why your voices are so important. A constituent told me a story, and when she told me the story of someone who died, I hit the ground running, and we had a forum in DC, and I was shocked how crowded the forum was. I had no idea that it was such a problem. I'm embarrassed to say. I had no idea. And then I, of course, learned so much in the last 10 years, and we still have a lot of work to do around that. And it was my legislation that was passed through President Biden that extended the postpartum Medicaid period from 60 days to a year. And I know it's saving lives. And it was informed by, the people in the business, OBGYNs, doulas, midwives, nurses. I listened to the people that are doing the job. And this is what they told me they felt was needed. And of course, I spoke to survivors and also family members of people that died, that shared with me what they felt was needed. I still do a lot of work around gun violence prevention, and it's embarrassing that we have not done more. It's so embarrassing. And my part of the bill that did pass was the store purchasing trafficking, because I would go to DC and people would say, what is up with Chicago? They have the toughest gun laws, but look at what's happening. But if no one else around you has tough gun laws, and I had Chuck's in my district, the gun shop, and they were notorious, like crime guns can be traced back to just a certain amount of gun dealers, and they were one of them, and happy to say Chuck's closed. And I'm not against guns. My grandparents had a mom and pop grocery store in New York, and if I wanted to go to the bathroom, I jumped over my grandfather's rifle every day. And but if you're not trying to hurt yourself or anybody else, and you have your gun legally, I don't think you need a military weapon. But then I'm fine with it. And I know, like our gun violence prevention task force, the head of it may have more guns than people in this room. It's his hobby. His hobby is guns, and he is a wine grower. A little scary combination, but he makes it work. But so that's very much been a part of my portfolio, and other things like workforce development. Me and actually my Republican partner, he drugged me into it, I will admit, with our artificial intelligence and just making sure that our young people and people displaced have the tools they need to find jobs of today and also the jobs of tomorrow. But I passed just a litany of different kind of bills, or at least tried to pass them, as far as anything with, immigration, anything with, health care that's going to improve the lives of people, with the environment, just things I think that everyday people, want to see. That's what I'm a part of. So.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So we are going to take a few questions. There are cards that are going to be passed around in the room. So if you do have a question for the Congresswoman, there are going to be cards that are being passed around, and we will bring those up to the front, and then I will call upon you with those questions.
I guess I didn't say this, but I am running for Senate. I am running for Senate, and I want to take a lot of the work that I'm doing now to the Senate. I know I'm very ready and very able to do the job. I am not a show horse, I'm a workhorse, so a lot of times people don't even know how much, I have done and contributions that I have made, because my staff and no one does the work by themselves. I've been blessed with a wonderful staff for 12 years, and a lot of them have been with me the whole 12 years to help me make decisions and decide how I'm going to vote and different things like that. So I just, I want to go to the Senate and serve the whole state. I was the party chair as I said, I worked for Alexi, and then I was a Democratic nominee for treasurer. So I've been up and down and around this whole state. And I'm from New York, but my entry into Illinois was Peoria, where I lived mostly on for 20 years. Both my kids were born there. So I'm not a stranger to Central Illinois.
Congresswoman, can you tell us what it's been like serving in Congress recently, especially after January 6th, and what was it like being in Congress on January the 6th?
Well, January 6th, I remember the day well. We were looking over the balcony. We were certifying Biden's win, and then all of a sudden, we saw somebody being pulled off the floor. I saw a police officer running, and the next thing I know, we were the only ones left in the gallery. I don't know if they forgot about us, but we were the last 20. But we were on the more Dem side, and then we ran to the Republican side, and the next thing we knew, guns were out. They told us to lay low, so me and 19 of my colleagues were on our hands and knees laying flat because if they didn't shoot the woman, not that we wanted the woman to be shot and killed, but they were coming after us next. So we laid flat, and I still remember 3 knocks on the door, and we were taking off any identifying feature that we were in Congress. It was COVID, so a lot of us, like I had Rep. Robin Kelly on my mask, and we had our pins on, so we took everything off and laid there until there were 3 knocks on the door. And frankly, we were scared to answer the door because we didn't know, who was on the other side. But it was the Capitol Police, and I remember running down the stairs, running through the halls to get to a safe place. And I don't know if my adrenaline kicked in, but after I was running around making sure other people, were okay. But also after that, I was proud of the Democrats because we went back at 3:30 in the morning to make sure that Biden's race was certified. And then I never went to sleep. So really, I didn't know really what happened until I watched the news. We didn't know what was going on. And so I watched the news, and I never went to sleep. And I remember when I was catching my Southwest flight, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was so happy to jump on that plane to come back to Illinois. But and I remember Chewy Garcia was on a plane, and I paid extra money to Southwest so I could go on first, because they don't give us all those passes like people think. And I saved a seat for Chewy, but he didn't have anywhere to put his bag, so he was in the back with some of those same people. And I remember I had 2 news interviews, and I was huddled in the corner, sweatpants, sweatshirt. I didn't want anybody to say anything about Congresswoman Kelly. That's how we all felt. And one of my colleagues was on a flight. They had to return the flight to the gate because the people were unruly. And my colleagues, I went to Minnesota, the people knew who they were harassing them on the flight, and the same thing with those that went to California. So the day is clear in my mind, and I try to work in a bipartisan way if it helps the people. I have examples of, more dental care for unserved and underserved people, passed my first piece of legislation, and I worked with 5 dentists. They were all Republican, but I thought that was a good thing to do. But I never give up my values, though. So what happened, after we were back to whatever you want to call normal, I dropped Republicans off my bill. I wouldn't work with them anymore because they said, the Love Fest, it was a touristy day, and those kind of things, and some of them did not vote to certify the election. So that day will forever stand in my mind. And the group had, it's nothing they would not like me to say, but group counseling. And for some of my colleagues, even I'm trying to think, something that just happened triggered once again, and some of my colleagues have stayed in counseling because of that period. I didn't let myself believe I'm gonna die. And I remember saying, man, I do so much gun violence work. Is this the way it's going to end? But I just wouldn't let myself concentrate on that. But no, it was horrible.
Could you speak a bit about the disrespect for the rule of law that we're seeing out of the current administration, and what are congressional members doing to try to stop some of these?
Well, you know what? Thank God for attorney generals and the judges that have sense. Even some judges he put in place, not the Supreme Court, but the other judges in the courts, because really they have been the firewall, for us. And I think we learned that as soon as we have enough votes, there are some things we need to do. We need to codify, possibly even do different with the Constitution, or when you pass petitions in Illinois, unless you do certain things, you get kicked off the ballot. We need to have that. I don't care what office you're running for, because there's things he didn't do, like showing his taxes, things he didn't do that everybody else needs to do. But we're trying to speak to everybody we can talk to tell them what's going on. Yes, we're there, but you are our partners. To be honest with you, no matter how we vote, we don't have the numbers unless brave Republicans cross over, and we're not going to find them in Illinois, I'm sorry to say, but unless they cross over and vote with us. And they tell us, they know it's not right. They tell us that, but they're still not going to, not all of them, but they tell us that we know this is not right, but they're afraid of retaliation, and retaliation could be primary or because of what happened January 6th. Some of them are afraid of violent retaliation. I don't know if I have the years exactly right, but let's say 5 years ago, there were like 1,700 attacks or threats to members of Congress. Is up to 9,000 now. And then what just happened in Minnesota is scary. It's scary. But I will say, about a lot of them, if you're not willing to do your job, if you're that scared to speak up, you need to leave. You need to leave. So, but some of them say, if we leave, the person coming in will be worse, which I can't, it's hard to imagine now, but, so it's not, it's very frustrating, disappointing, any words you could think of. Even people we know that know better, even people that are nice, they're still going along with the program.
We're seeing numerous ICE raids all across the country. We're seeing them in Illinois. We're also seeing members of Congress that are going to ICE facilities and they're being turned away. Could you speak a little bit about your thoughts on what's happening with ICE currently, and what can Congress do to stop that, and what can we do to support you in stopping it?
Always you guys speaking up, helps tremendously. And I don't know state by state. Senator knows better than me, like what possibly can be done in that way. But we're going to the detention centers to bring attention to it and what's happening. And people are speaking out all over the country. You see what happened. My colleague Monica MacGyver just had to go to court, and she pleaded not guilty. And the video shows she did not do what they said, but it's just being so politicized. And so they're trying to make an example of her. They're trying to kick her off committees, trying to kick her out of Congress, actually. So we're all giving her money to fight her case, because she has to use her own money. And so we're all, giving her money so she could fight her case. But it's like, the interesting thing is that after they made that big commotion in New Jersey, after all the crowd was gone, they still took them through the ICE center and gave them a tour. But nobody knows that part, that everything still happened that they were trying to let happen. But, we just have to keep fighting, pushing back, letting the public know, what's going on. I mean, they have such carte blanche from the White House, That's the other thing. We have to do more about executive orders. They just can't be rampant, like this. I don't care who's the president, Democrat or Republican.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We want to thank you for making the trip here. I know it was a long day for you. I know you had something in Chicago a little earlier on. We appreciate that. We did invite others. We want to thank you for making the trip and for actually being here with us and for being open to taking questions directly from the audience. That is greatly, greatly appreciated. Could you talk with us a little bit about what we can do as Indivisible members to support members of Congress that are vocal, to support them in being more vocal, to speaking out against some of the things that they're seeing from the administration? We know that many members of Congress are with us on these issues, but some people are afraid to speak out. What can we do to encourage our members of Congress to be much more vocal in their resistance?
Really hearing from you and knowing that you're on the right, a person's on the right track, especially if they live in a, not red, because the red is Republican, but in a purple district before the red district. That's why I had a town hall meeting out of my district, because I wanted to make sure that Democrats, but not only Democrats, independents and Republicans came too, to make sure that people had a voice, since my colleagues aren't having town hall meetings, or I don't even think tele-town hall meetings, but I'm not positive about that. But yeah, calling them and letting them hear from you and saying, we got you, you're on the right track. I think, you kind of hear the negative a lot of times, but, to hear the positive also. And if you do have a Republican representative, come see them when they're in the district. We don't want them to be allowed to get away with what they're doing. That's really important also. And, you can call the White House, but I think, members hearing from, everyday folks, hearing from the people that we represent. Again, all the things that I've done, I didn't think of all those things. People informed me, told me how they felt, about things, or I might have thought one way, but then they gave me the other side of the story. Stories matter, and that's how we're going all over the country. I've been in, Collegeville, Pennsylvania. I've been in Norfolk, listening to, vets, listening to people that deal with child care, that deal with SNAP, that are union people that are losing their jobs. See, even that we need to talk about more, because people are stopping their investment in solar and environmental type things, and all the people they've trained, now they're not going to have a job. We had a union member from 134, where was I? And I'm all over the place. In Pennsylvania, talked to us about that. So what he's trying to do with the ugly bill and more is hurting so many people. And what I tell people, don't think about what they're doing to them only, because soon we'll all be them. It may not hit you now, but it's coming. Whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, whatever different things that he's trying to do, may not come to you yet, but what he's doing with immigration, what they haven't done with voting rights, it's going to affect everybody.
Congresswoman, we have a number of Indivisible leaders here from across the state. We've got folks from all the way from Carbondale all the way up to Waukegan. So they all want to thank you for being here. We do want to move on to some of their questions, as there are a lot of great questions from Indivisible leaders from across the state. So I would like to call up Jessica, Jermaine, Brandy, for now, and there are a couple of others that don't have names on them, but we will get to them momentarily.
No? Oh, okay, sorry. First of all, thank you for your service. Appreciate it. This might sound like a crazy question, but
no question.
The federal government is clearly breaking laws and not fulfilling their obligations through appropriations already assigned, etc. Is there any possibility that as a state we can withhold tax revenues or anything until they fulfill their obligations?
I don't. Well, we you can answer.
So the issue is that your dollars go directly to the IRS. And so while we are a donor state, we give more than we receive back in federal funding. If you did not do that, you would all be violating IRS's laws, and they could come after you. So this has been floated. I know other states are looking at it. There were people in the Senate who are also asking about this. We don't know of a legal way at this moment, because it basically collectively tell you all to stop paying your taxes. I don't know how that happens. So it's a fancy idea, and yeah, I'd love to hold them accountable, but I think so that's the answer from the state.
But you don't want them to go after you, trust me. This is a whole different thing, but I remember when Governor Abbott was sending, doing his human trafficking, and I called the governor and I said, can't we sue? Because this is ridiculous what he's doing to people. And he said, nope, there's no way, there's nothing in the law that would allow us to do that. But you know what? Let's look into that.
Hi, my question is, what advice would you give to people who are interested in running for office, specifically state office, and just kind of don't know where to get started, campaign-wise?
Right. I always tell people, you can always look like a young Dem. You can get involved, with young Dems, or if there's a state person close to you that you think is doing a good job, reflects your issues. We're always looking for, volunteers to help out, or, I have people intern for me, and it's really interesting how it really changes their mind a lot on their views and how they see things, or if there are particular issues that you really, really care about, there's a group for every issue to get involved in that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could also welcome up Jen and Kendall Harris as well for your questions.
Come up, young lady.
Hello, Robin. Keep seeing you everywhere. This is kind of a general question, but you've had some experience fighting the Trump administration, and you've got connections in D.C., and you know who you can work with, and so forth. So how can you best help us fight the evil doings of Trump and his ilk? And how can we best work with you on that as senator or continued congresswoman, either way? How can we best help you? Senator, how can we best help you as well as you help us?
Well, I mean, as you know, since I'm your, I have Vermilion County. What I've tried to help Jermaine and company with is building up their Democratic organization, whether, helping with fundraisers or different things like that. I think we need to shore up the different Democratic organizations. That helps all of us, not just me, but if it's, statewide or whatever, we need more people involved, and we need more people voting, more people making suggestions, more people telling their story. But for us, I go back to, we cannot let Republicans off the hook. And where you are, there's a little amount of them around you. I took over for a large part of Mary Miller's district. And when people said to me, man, we're so happy we have a Democrat, I had no idea, and she's a person that did not believe in bringing resources back to her district, even though, as the senator said, we're a donor state. We help Arkansas, Mississippi, on and on and on. She did not believe in that, and I think that's probably why my mayors and farmers said, we like you, because even though they thought I was going to ignore them, I have brought resources, back to Danville, Fairbury, and Livingston County, and on and on and on, and done a lot of orientation about what resources are out there. So that's how I want to help in general, just help, people. But, you guys help us by being a voice and letting, I guess, all of us know that you're looking, you're listening, you're holding us accountable, for what we're doing. And again, giving us ideas,
Thank you very much.
Question on silencers, so if that person can come up, and for everyone that's filling out
Hey, Ms.
cards, if
Kelly.
you can put your names on.
My name is Kendall Harris, and I'm formerly from Kankakee, Illinois.
All right.
You done so much work while I was on the school board with Smith School. You actually came out to the Pembroke Day Parade to run for election, and you are the first Democrat that I voted for.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
Thanks to my Uncle George Washington Jr., who was on the county board at the time in Kankakee. So my question is, do you have anything else on gun legislation coming up, or will it even do any good right now?
Honestly, yeah, I have legislation. There's a number of pieces of legislation, not only from me, but Maxwell Frost, Lucy McBath, who lost her son to gun violence. Maxwell, got so involved because of Parkland, Stephen Horsford. We have a bill stopping the cycle of violence because what we want to do is really get to the ground level. There's a lot of things we need to do, but we need to get to the ground level. We need to get to prevention.
Yes.
And this money would go to proven things that work. Proven organizations and those kind of things. We just heard from Everytown and Greg Jackson, who was the deputy of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We're trying to get the office open again, but we know he's not going to open, the office. In fact, they keep making it easier, to have access to guns. So what we were able to pass a couple of years ago, unless some miracle happens, I believe right now, that'll be the thing in place. We're just making sure that most of that stays in place because they're clawing back monies that were supposed to go to nonprofits, but they have not clawed back whatever municipalities are getting. They haven't done that yet. But who knows, what they're going to do. It's a shame, but, they're evil and cruel. I hate to put it any other way, and I don't like to put one broad brush on people,
and
but
that's not the totality of the Republican Party. I don't know what that is up there.
Yeah. No, I know.
Thank you very much on behalf of Pembroke, Kankakee County, once again, my former neighborhood. Thank you again.
Pembroke that has moving away from propane.
If Jeff can come up as well.
My name is Jen Roth. I'm from Urbana. Thank you for coming. When Senator Van Hollen went down to El Salvador to demand to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that was a sort of legislative use of congressional power that made a huge difference in really sort of bringing that to the forefront. I guess what I'm wondering is I guess I would like to hear you say, oh yeah, all the Democrats in Congress are racking their brains looking for those sort of non-legislative levers of power that they have, that they can use. It hasn't really felt like that certainly with a lot of people, but are there still people who need to sort of be I'm not asking for names. Are there people who need to sort of be pressed to sort of see the urgency and the extreme, really existential danger of this administration, to press them into using those levers? Or is there some folks that are still sort of going, okay, we'll wait till the midterms, it'll be fine, keep our heads down?
If we could change things right now, we would change things right now. When we talk about the midterms, I guess in a way that's more reality in a way, because we don't want people to think we could do things tomorrow, but when it comes to legislation. But what I've always said, no matter who's in office, I still do the things in my district. Like, I still have my housing fairs so people don't lose their housing. I still have my job fairs to help connect people to jobs. I still have my health fairs. I do what I can do in my district. I had to know your rights so that I knew that undocumented folks wouldn't come, but all the people that deal with them, like schools and agencies, that they would know what the rights are. So there's still things that we can do that are not legislative, more programming or, different things like that a lot of us are doing. I have had a couple of teletown hall meetings. My district is so big, it's hard to have town hall meetings all over. So one had 11,000, this was this year, another had 13,000, and then I bring like an expert on with me if it's topical, or something like that. And I did do some face-to-face. I went to Eastern Illinois, which is outside of my district, but that's Boss and Mary Miller. They have a piece of it, I guess. So I did one there. And then I went to Peoria. Now, that's Eric Sorensen's district, but because I went to Bradley, they wanted me to come because it was, he could have come, but they wanted me specifically because they wanted me to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I started the Black Alumni Scholarship there and the endowment in 1992. And it's still going strong. And the students were very worried about, but everybody came, the president. So those are things, we're doing too, going out of our districts. Plus, we have to call them shadow hearings, because as Democrats, we're really not allowed to have hearings, but Hakeem said they're breaking all the rules, so we'll break some too. So we've gone to, we've been in California, Norfolk, Virginia, Philadelphia. We're going to New Orleans. We're trying to get right to Steve Scalise's district and another person too. And then we're trying to go places where Biden won the district, but Biden won, or Biden or Harris, I should say, won, but a Republican is still the state rep or congressperson. So we're trying to go to their districts because they're scared. You see Don Bacon in the blue dots not running again. So there is some effect, and also whether it's state, mostly, or other places where there's been elections, Democrats have won 15 out of 17. Yeah. So, and this is in Iowa, this is in Pennsylvania, so that's given us hope too that, people are listening. And the other, I know I'm being long-winded, I'm sorry, but the other thing that we learned from this past election, that we have to use our leverage. I love David Muir, I watch him every night, ABC, but we can't just do ABC and frankly, MSNBC, CNN, social media is important, the influencers are important, the podcasts are important. Like, we realize we have to do more, because really, a lot of times, like, the legacy hasn't done us any good, because they never report what we're doing or the fights we've won. And as I mentioned already, the AGs have been fantastic, and they come to DC, like Kwame has been to DC many times with Keith Ellison and Tish and others, to keep us informed, to let us know, what's happening. And the ACLU has been wonderful, and they're helping us speak to our constituents.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Jeff Dugan. I'm one of the co-leaders of Champaign County Indivisible. I want to give you a moment to dream big for just a moment. Let's imagine a hypothetical Project 2028, in which between the Democratic Party and the Democratic Socialists of America, every single federal, state, and county office that is on the ballot in November of 28 is being contested. What do you think are the 3 most important, or fewer if you'd like, issues for that slate to run on? And I'll actually take my answer from my seat because I'm in the front row.
Okay. When we talked about this during the last election, people kind of made fun of us a little bit when we talked about saving our democracy, but I think that people get it a little bit more now. And I know you guys got it, but I think that's very important, our freedoms, because our freedoms are being taken away. And when I think about, women's reproductive freedom, when I think about what they want to do to public schools, in my district alone, I would lose 6,777 teachers if they do the most in the state of Illinois. When I think about, freedoms and opportunities, when you say you want to take away diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means everybody, by the way, when you want to take that away, and the only reason I'm here, or I've had the jobs and opportunities I have, is because I'm Black, that's BS. So I know I'm qualified, and I earned. No one gave me anything. I earned everything. I didn't. I'm grateful to people, definitely. My parents and friends and that kind of thing. But I think saving our democracy and our freedoms, we still are fighting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Yeah. We still. And I come from a family from New York City cops, and my nephews are Chicago cops. But we still are fighting for George Floyd justice and policing, and I just think, those things, we're still fighting for health care for everybody. Yeah. We need that, and Lord knows we need immigration reform. Yeah. And the thing about immigration reform, as they say, politics make strange bedfellows. Yes, we want it, the farmers want it, the Chamber of Commerce wants it, so how come we have not, done that? So, and of course, I'm going to say, gun violence, because it's still so prevalent. I mean, the number one reason our kids die, all the kids, that's absolutely ridiculous. I could go on, the environment, but I do think saving our democracy is so important because they are chipping away, little by little, trying to take, natural resources, trying to sell parkland, and I know, it means different things to different people, especially depending on where you live, but I really think people have more of a understanding. And of course, America being affordable. And I'm saying that as I remember when I got divorced. I know too much information, but I got divorced. I had 2 kids, and I remember having to eat Cheerios for dinner because I couldn't afford anything else. And I was a 2-time Bradley grad with a job at Bradley when I was on. No one knew. My kids loved eating Cheerios for dinner, but they didn't know that's what I could afford.
I just have a quick statement from the person that asked about how to run for office. If you just Google organizations that help, particularly women, I did women, but you can do persons. There's a ton of people out there that really are helping. Emily's List, She Should Run, Emerge America, Vote, Run, Lead, Center for American Women. And those were just the top 5 that came out, and they're really, especially Emily's List, just does amazing things. So, if anyone wants to run, they should look into these.
Thank you for saying that. I didn't do any of that. That's why sometimes it doesn't come to mind.
Congresswoman Kelly, could you tell us what your top priority would be in the Senate for sharing up democracy and election integrity during the Trump era?
To shore up?
Shore up, yes.
Well, I think, one thing about, even though, they said that, we cheated and all of that for him winning, but one thing I'll give a little credit to, that even the Republican in states like Georgia and other places, they did not go along with their program, that they did put their job first. I mean, I was shocked too, but they did speak up, and they did agree with the Democrats, Secretary of States, or who is responsible, that it was legal, and but I think that we still have to have watchdogs, and or I should say something better than that, inspector generals, to oversee elections. If there's places that we're more shaky about, to make sure we have the security, make sure we check the machines, even though there's so much vote by mail. And, people try to put a lot of doubt on that, but there's many states that have done it, for a long time now, like Oregon. That's all you can do there, and they seem very, very satisfied. I know people get shaky, and, here some people talk about, well, the post office, we don't get our mail. I don't know about down here, but, and so people don't feel confident about that. But I think that, the more examples we can give of what has been successful, maybe that will, calm people a little bit. But I definitely think that we need to make sure we have inspector generals in place and quite frankly, security, because we know also that they've put things in place. I mean, changing voting places, like we need to do things that they can't do that, or that there's set voting hours, not that you make it shorter here, where people that may not agree with you may vote, or just like the thing about can't give the person water, just silly things like that. But maybe we could put those kind of things in place to ensure there's more, I guess, uniformity.
You tell us what your view is of the big, beautiful bill and Speaker Johnson.
I'm not gonna curse. Speaker Johnson is one of the biggest hypocrites that I know. And I'm so sick of, and please don't take this as disrespectful, of all of these highfalutin Christians that invite us to bipartisan prayers on Thursday, and they pray P-R-A-Y Thursday morning, and then they P-R-E-Y when they come to the floor. And, we don't really see him that much, but I just want to scream at him, shame, and, and some other words too, but it's just so phony. It's just so unbelievable. And, he's like, why can't we all get along? And God, and all of that. I mean, some lightning bolts should come down. But, and actually, in one of my, in Energy and Commerce, she's not there anymore, Kathy McMorris Rogers, I'm sure she thought she was trying to be nice, but she said at the beginning she was the chair. This was last Congress. I read something I want you guys to read, so I thought she meant Energy and Commerce stuff so we could know more things. She handed out a Bible to everybody, and everybody is not Christian in Congress, and everyone is not a believer in Congress. They may be agnostic or, whatever. Everybody's not the same. And I remember I didn't take the book. I just said, God, don't get me. But I didn't take the book because I didn't think it was appropriate. And really to be in solidarity with Jan Schakowsky, who's Jewish. And but there were a few. Annie Custer, she's not there anymore. She thought it was very insulting. Nanette Barragan, we didn't take the books. And so it's just so phony. It's just so phony. And what was the other? So busy on Johnson. Oh, the big, beautiful bill is so, it's so horrible, repulsive, outrageous. There's not enough words. So insulting to the American people, and how they are not ashamed, and how they could go along with this and vote for this. And what I've said to my colleagues many times, they keep saying, Robin, just shut up. That's the way they are, because I keep saying to myself, they can't think this is true. They can't want to do this. More of their people will suffer than our people. They have more of the rural areas. 9 rural hospitals, some of my districts, some not, are going to close. In the more urban part of my district, there's a hospital I can think of right now hanging by a thread. And my God, you don't care. The federally qualified healthcare centers, I could just go on and on and on. And we try to bring it up every, chance, we could get. The other thing I wanted to say, just going back to Johnson for a second, but he's just representative of this. Whatever you are religiously, as a member of Congress, we shouldn't be trying to divide people, and those kind of things. We shouldn't sow hate and all of that, and it's just too much of that. And the senator from Utah, when the state rep and the other gentleman and their spouses that got shot in Minnesota, and for Senator Lee to make his comment, and then however you feel, but when what am I trying to say? The councilman that won for mayor on the Democratic side, when he won, what one of them said, just so racist and ungodly, it's just terrible. But I really think, when Trump came in the first time, the decorum has dropped, in the House. And you know what? Sometimes we act ugly too. Taylor Greene was in the, she was the Speaker pro tem, and she said to us, let's have some decorum. And it was so crazy. That is exactly what we did. We couldn't believe it. We were looking at her like, you have got to be out of your mind. And she's like so disrespectful. But but the other frustrating thing is they let them get away with it. Yes. Like at the State of the Union, our people got pulled out. She wears her hats, she and Bobart, screams out, liar, do this. They never pull them out. But our people got pulled out. A number of people got pulled, and then, some left, of course, but yeah, it's very disappointing, but you know what? I'm not gonna let anybody steal my joy, and I'm not gonna get weary because people are depending on us, to hang in there and fight the fight. And we gotta be resilient, and we gotta be, resistant, when it makes sense.
Hi, I'm Tracy Dugan. I'm the other half of the leads of Champaign County Indivisible. I'm a social studies teacher, and I teach 7th grade social studies at a middle school a couple blocks away from here. And a lot of what we're talking about today and a lot of what I'm hearing you say is really bringing up an issue for me that has come up as I've been teaching social studies throughout all of the Trump era, when he's running for office, and I'm reassuring my students. And one of the things that at the end of it, the first time around, I said, don't worry, we have 3 branches of government. Our government is designed so that those 3 branches will check each other and keep one branch from never getting more power than the others. That's not happening. That's not happening. We're seeing all the other 2 branches kowtow to this. I think I'm in company that I can say this monster that's sitting in our house right now. And what are we supposed to, I think everyone in this room is doing, right? We're all doing. We're all fighting every day. We're working hard. We're fighting. I know you're fighting. I know that there are people in Congress that are fighting, but there aren't enough of you fighting. So when we are watching the Constitution be violated consistently, and my own students, who it was fascinating to be teaching my 7th graders about the Constitution when he was inaugurated, and we watched him violate the Constitution, and my kids would watch the news and come into me the next day and go, but Mrs. Dugan, doesn't the Constitution say? And I would say, yes, it does. What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to keep having faith that our government is going to protect us?
All I can say is, you're right, I'm fighting, but there's more than me fighting. I believe that, and on every level of government, people are fighting. And when I say contact your folks, also don't let the Republican state reps and state senators get away with it. Let them know, how you feel also, and you're watching them also. I know it's not a lot, in Illinois. They don't what?
They don't really listen, and they don't really respond to reach out.
But they need to know there's a lot of you, that feel like that. And of course, if it's in their district, that's, even better. Like I said, they have ceded power to the president. There is no, doubt about it. And, we're hoping that, like I said, Don Bacon's not running. The person we had running against him came really close. I don't think he's going to do it again because he tried twice, and I think he's not going to do it. But there's another person, stepping up. The thing is, it's interesting because I'm trying to think how this. How in the Senate they have to have 60 votes. That's saving us some too, because the Senate doesn't have it, and there's 5 or 6 Republicans that are not going along with the bill. But honestly, some want to make it worse, than it is. They want more taken out of Medicaid. But thank God, this time the parliamentarian is striking it down, and telling them that they have to have 60 votes. It can't just be majority vote. And so that's what's helping. That's what's helping us also. And we never thought we would say, yay, Josh Hawley. Never. But when we had the 26.5-hour markup in Energy and Commerce, we were quoting Josh Hawley that this is immoral, and of course, like he's saying, it's political suicide, also the things they're doing, because again, more of their people, will be hurt. But again, the 60 is saving us. the parliamentarian is saving us right now, and then the AGs. And I know it's easy for me to say don't get weary, but we don't want you to get weary because you're keeping us going too. You're keeping us going because, you know, sometimes I'm cursing more than I ever curse, you know. I'm among friends. I don't know if there was any young people. I know my grandson's back there somewhere. He's 10.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Me. It's a show.
Speaking in regards to some people who don't feel like Congress is doing a lot and a lot of our powers are being seceded to Trump. My name is Stephanie Sabo. I'm from Southern Illinois. So I have lovely Mike Bost as my representative who, even though you speak out, and there has been a lot of speak out. For the No Kings protest, there was over 2,000 in Carbondale. There was over 500 in O'Fallon, 1,000 I don't know if Alton is his, but Belleville had close to 1,000. So there's a lot, and then your smaller towns. He speaked out before that and said that he got in contact with sheriffs and chief of police, and he keeps calling us radical leftists. So I think you keep telling us to speak to our people, especially the ones who live in Boss, Miller, LaHood, who will not listen to us, and who also will tell his constituents, you know, his constituents are like true believers. And I think another reason is, so with the Trump administration and their, you know, unconstitutional acts left and right every day, but people, and I have heard it from my neighbors, that he thinks that they're getting stuff done. So, and how Congress, you know, state, federal, it takes time, but people think, oh, he's an outsider, he's getting things done, not really understanding that this is unconstitutional, but they still get things done. So how can we, as Blue Dots, tell our neighbors, these people who are very, I know it's hard, very MAGA, that this is not how things get done, and how can we fight against that, the not remain the status quo?
Well, I want to say thank you to you guys, and the thing is, I know it's hard, but you got to keep it up. He's going to act like he doesn't hear you, and he doesn't know what's going on. He knows, you know, because they come back and say, they've said, you know, we're paying Democrats to show up. But we also know, we've seen it time and time again, Republicans come also. So it's easy for me to say, but it's not easy actually, but, you know, don't give up. Because it's just really important that he sees that you could say that crap. But also the other thing is, I don't know how to say it any other way. Things are not getting done. Things are not getting done.
Yeah.
First of all, they're fighting with each other. The Freedom Caucus are fighting with their regular people. You know, and just like now, the House Democrats are fighting with the Republican Democrats. So I don't know what they think is getting done.
I think well, you know, a lot of them watch Fox News. I work in healthcare. I work in a rural hospital, so I see a lot of my kids, you know, my patients watch Fox News. Lord have mercy on me. So, and everything, but you know, and it is propaganda, and they see like, oh, Trump did this, he's taken away this, and Doge is doing this, and we need Doge in Illinois, and all this stuff. So they see what's being presented to them, and not the back end. So again, but these people still be like, oh, they're doing that. So obviously it's working for us, and we're going to continue voting for that way or supporting that person.
You know, another thing is, I don't know how much it's impacted where you live, but, you know, Doge, a lot of people have lost their jobs. And it's Democrats and Republicans. They didn't look at how you voted. No. A lot of people, you know, have lost their jobs. So, and there's a group that has gone around for 15 weeks. I spoke to one group maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were all the USAID people. So you cut USAID, then you did the tariffs, and now you want to cut SNAP. Who's going to be affected? Who is being affected are farmers. And, you know, so tell them to go talk to some of their farmers who, a lot of them are not Democrats, you know, and they were just in my office. They were just in my office the other day. And they even admitted another time they were in my office this year. We know most of us voted for him. There's a lot of buyer's remorse. And I wish those folks would step up, because even with SNAP, you don't, you don't give them the benefits. Well, they're not shopping at whatever your grocery store, Kroger, whatever it is, Jewel, and so then they're gonna have to lay off people because not as many people are shopping, and then they're not gonna buy from the farmers. We are all in this together, you know, and then also what you speak to is all the misinformation.
Yes.
That's a big part of it. I was at a forum today and someone pulled me aside and said, we have to do more. The thing I'm trying to figure out is, like, I send to my constituents newsletters or email. Not that everybody looks at email. It's hard to capture everybody, but we do all kind of different things. But if you live in a red, you don't see the same thing. And what can we do? Because the news doesn't even talk about, you know, what we do. Like, what can we do to get that information to more people?
Thank you.
And
thank
thank
you. For your
you.
time. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you for.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I know we're a little over time, but I think this one last question was important that came from one of the audience members. It's about reproductive health and the burden that is put on women. What happens to women and girls that are raped and abortion is illegal? What happens?
Can I frame this? I want to frame it. So yes, thank you, Congresswoman Kelly, for coming here. We are very happy that you're here. It's not just that part. Right now, of course, you know, Planned Parenthood is going to be defunded totally because of what SCOTUS did, and we have women who are raped, girls who are raped all the time. We always talk about what happens to them, especially like I'm a retired RN. And I worked oncology most of my working life, but initially there was a point in time that I was practicing on a urology oncology floor. Urology gynecology floor. And during the middle of the night, when we got an admission, and it was a gynae admission, it was usually an ectopic pregnancy that had burst, and we were getting them post-op after a belly full of blood, and here, not only are these reproductive rights screwed, and there are women now that are having ectopics that they don't want to touch, and ectopics are never viable. A lot of times they're going to burst the fallopian tube. They're going to have a belly full of blood, and on top of that, what if they are raped? My question is, okay, we always worry about the woman and what happens to the woman. What happens to that darn rapist? That's what I want to know. Because the rapist usually doesn't get anything. The courts ignore it. Especially, let's say, for example, it's a high school guy. They're saying, well, we want to give them a little. You know, we don't want to ruin his life. We want to be flexible about this. You know, we don't want that. What we really want is for him to just slide. Well, the woman or the girl, and a lot of times it's a 15 or 16-year-old girl, she has her life ruined. So my question is, how do we get it so something is done about these rapists, and maybe we would not have such a problem.
Well, anyone who rapes anyone, whether it's you know the person or it's a familial kind of thing, they need to face the law and they need to go to jail and do whatever we would normally do to anybody that breaks the law and accosts a woman or a girl. I mean, there's no excuse. And yes, people do dumb things in high school, but that is over the top, and any high schooler, you know, should know that. And how long have we been saying no means no? And I think a high schooler would understand that. Changing the topic a second, one of my colleagues was pregnant. I don't know if y'all heard about this. One of my colleagues was pregnant, and it turned out it was ectopic. She lives in Florida, where they have the rule. It doesn't matter. We took one of our hearings to Florida last year and heard from 2 moms that wanted to have their babies. They weren't trying to have an abortion, but it didn't go the way they hoped. And the one mom, the baby died in her stomach, and they would not do an abortion. And they said, like, almost, I'm paraphrasing, go in the parking lot, and like when you're almost there yourself, then we can do it. So it's so interesting how with my colleague, when she had that, and Florida had the rule, and they were following the rule, of course, she used her, I'm the congresswoman and all of that, when it was her party that put all that in place, and actually said the reason they wouldn't, they refused her was because of the lefties, that we forced the hospital not to treat her, so, it's like you don't care until it happens to you. But even like I say about gun violence, just how many people have to be killed or maimed, or who does it have to be before we do anything? Does it have to be one of their children? It doesn't even have to be them, because Steve Scalise was shot, Gabby Gifford was shot, but just who is it that will finally make them do something? Even LGBTQ plus. I don't know if this is when I came in or right before, the Republicans fought against it, and then one of the Republicans, his son told him, I'm gay. Then all of a sudden, it was a whole different, ball game. It's really sad.
Democrats kind of get up and talk about this more, though, in the news, and kind of fight back on all of these stories coming up, or that are happening every day, that are so hypocritical and just so outlandish. I feel like there could be a stronger force, or like even just one person, a leader, going up and just listing all the hypocrisy and all of the tragedy and all of just the ridiculous things that the Republicans are doing that just get passed over so fast, because then it's the next banning chaos.
We do message every day, like different people do messaging, but it's on C-SPAN. They don't, and then also Hakeem Jeffries speaks every day, or Pete Aguilar. He's the Democratic chair after all of our meetings. They do get up and speak, but, how many people watch C-SPAN? That's the problem. And what I'm talking about was in the paper. If you look up Cat McCormick.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Oh, I know you might have other things that are coming up.
I just want to thank all of you, and for your commitment, for your staying together. I mean, it's so important. Really, I know we represent you, but you're the important ones. You are the important ones. We work for you. So that's why your voices are so important, just so important. And I just want to thank all of you for taking the time. I know you've been here a while, for taking the time to be here, to listen, to ask questions. And some of the things you said to me, I'm going to go back and say, hey, we need to look at this, or how can we do better, with that? How can we, project even more? We think we're projecting, but we're projecting in our own districts, in a way, and that's why, we're taking the show on the road. They are going to come to Chicago, but I'm hoping that I can convince them to do Chicago and then do downstate also, I know when I had my town hall meeting in Pontiac, that was so appreciated. And then when I went to Eastern, to Charleston to do it there, and my whole thing is I want everybody to know they're important. You don't have to live in Chicago. You don't have to live in Cook County. Like I said, my entrance into Illinois was Peoria, where I lived for many years, worked, and my kids were born there. Everybody's voice is important, and I just want people to realize that. So thank you guys so much, and thanks for what you do. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for coming and taking unfiltered questions from all of us. Thank you for respecting the Indivisible leaders by actually being here today.